Rear foot elevated split squat with internal rotation bias. A lot of fancy words going on here, but we're going to break it down and you're going to feel really good about this by the time I am done cueing you through it. You want to use a surface that is pretty low. Honestly, I made the mistake of doing rear foot elevated split squats with bench, box, etc. That was way too high for too long. Now you can do it, but I highly recommend that if you can, you use a surface that is lower. So this is just an exercise mat. Some gyms have the kind of like lower roller looking apparatuses that are specifically used for this strength training movement. So make sure you've got something that's a little bit lower than what you probably think you need. Now, what we want to remember about this, that this is a split squat. So by the nature of it being a squat, it means we're looking for more vertical displacement or movement with the hips than horizontal. So that means down and up. We don't want our hips to be going back more than they're going down. They're going to go back some, and that is fine, but we're not using this as a hinge pattern. This is a squat pattern. To get set up for this, your working leg will be slightly in front, and then you're going to put the top of your foot on your bench or whatever you're using. Now, what we don't need to do is have our knees super close together and then try to go down from there. It's going to feel really hard and the balance is going to be super tough, okay? So get some space in between your knees, all right? It doesn't have to be like way out here. We don't have to be a cowboy, but we want to make sure that they're not close together, okay? So just about like hip width distance apart or so. Now you want your big toe and heel in one line, so make sure that your heel isn't inside of your toe or anything like that. Now, what we want to make sure of is when we're in this starting position right here, we don't want to have one hip hiked up. So right now you can see my left hip is like really hiked up. So I want to make sure that both of my hip bones are essentially in one line. And then you want to make sure that you are over the hip that you're getting ready to work. So by that, I mean that you may have to kind of think about swiveling that hip back ever so slightly, okay? It doesn't mean that you're rotating away from the hip or rotating off of the hip, but you can see right here that this one's kind of out to the side. I don't want that, okay? I want to think about if someone were to take me and just kind of like screw me in from top to bottom, then it would be in a really nice straight line, okay? So you can kind of watch what I do here. So get here, I know I need to get my hips even. Now this hip is still a little bit just like outside of that really nice line that I want. So I'm just gonna kind of take it and pull it back ever so slightly. So you see how this is kind of in one nice line now. All right, now we're set up to actually do the split squat. As we come down, this hip is not going to move, okay? It needs to stay right where it is in terms of its alignment. You're gonna come down, you don't wanna go back, okay? So your chest needs to stay lifted, you're coming down, your knee is coming forward, and as this hip stays in the same spot, we want to think about the opposite hip kind of reaching forward as we're going down, okay? But you're not gonna turn away like that. It's not a rotation like that, okay? We wanna make sure that we're essentially keeping this hip in the same spot while we're bringing this one, the other one, slightly forward. The reason we're doing that is because it is creating a bit more internal rotation. We're putting a little more stretch across the glute, and we're just asking the musculature around the pelvis to lengthen just a tiny bit more. So we're getting a really lot of great benefit from this one little added variation. Looking at things from the side can be helpful as well, and we want to make sure that we understand exactly what what is going on with that internal rotation, because this is really important. So I'm gonna get set up. I'm gonna make sure my knees aren't too close together. I want both of my knees facing forward. I wanna make sure that my non-stance leg, I don't want that knee facing out, okay? That knee needs to face straight down. Heels are behind toes. I don't have my foot kind of pointed one way or the other. Everything is in this really nice parallel line. Now I'm gonna get my pelvis set, and then I need to kind of rotate over that left hip. Now, as I come down, that left hip is not gonna move to the right or to the left, okay? That left hip is gonna stay where I set it. Now I'm gonna squat down, and I'm gonna let that right knee, as I squat, just kind of think about bringing it forward ever so slightly. And you're gonna feel a really big stretch across the back of your hip right here as you do that. And you're gonna come down and then back up and down and back up. All right, there's a lot going on here, but I promise once you do it a few times, you're gonna be like, oh wow. Okay, I get it now. All right, that is your rear foot elevated split squat with internal rotation bias.